Good day, good morning, or good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of E.TV. I'd like to give you some news and notes and the fallout of some situations that happened after week 3 in the NFL. First up, the latest news, I should say is breaking news. Andy Reid has changed his mind and has decided to go back with Michael Vick as to be his starter in the Week 3 contest for the Philadelphia Eagles. Originally, after the Week 2 win over the Detroit Lions, he said that he wanted Kevin Faulk to start. But you know what? Talent wins. And he saw the talent that Michael Vick brought to the table. And I'm not saying that Kevin Faulk can't get the job done, but if you had the option of, let's say, eating at Buffalo Wild Wings for a first date, or if you had the opportunity of, let's say, eating at a 5-star restaurant for a first date, what would you rather go with? If you could afford both, that is, you'd go with the 5-star restaurant. And I think Andy Reid has decided to eat good for week 3. And he's going to go with Andy Reid, with Michael Vick. I mean, you can't be mad at the guy. I mean, he's taken a couple years off in his first full-fledged start as an NFL quarterback. He passed for 284 yards. Granted, it's against the Detroit Lions, but still, for somebody that hasn't been doing anything active for the past couple years, and for him to come back or only having 1 year under his belt as a backup, and to do that, that's pretty impressive. Next up, let's talk about the three-headed monster of running backs that they have in Washington. Now, apparently, the Washington Redskins earlier today have released/cut running back Larry Johnson. Now, originally, that three-headed monster was Clinton Portis, Willie Parker, and Larry Johnson. I guess they weren't happy with Larry, and they told him, peace. So you don't got to go home, but you got to get stepping out of here. Now, let's go local. Let's talk about the New York Giants and the New York Jets. Let's start off with the Jets first. Braylon. Apparently, Monday morning at 5:35 a.m., Braylon Edwards, wide receiver for the New York Jets, was arrested for DWI. Now, apparently, he was pulled over for tints that were too dark, and it escalated to a situation where, excuse me, is that Patron that I smell? Could you step out of the car, please? Now, I'm not saying it was Patron that he was drinking, but, you know, maybe his eyes were a little half open and whatnot, probably slurred a little bit in the speech. I mean, at 5:35 in the morning, I mean, unless you're going to work or coming home from work, the police are going to have some questions to ask you. But my thing is this. You're a professional athlete, a multi-million-dollar athlete, and you're a household name. Now, the first day of camp, I'm sure that all these professional franchises offer services in which they can get car service to and from wherever they want to go. Now, rumor is that, you know, Braylon had a charity event that he attended earlier, and then, you know, maybe a couple of fellas wanted to hang out afterwards, catch a couple drinks, or maybe go out to dinner, and things, you know, went from this to that. That I understand. But what I don't understand is, you know what? I'm having a couple drinks. I'm having a good time. Let me just get a car service to A, bring me home, and I can pay one of my entourage boys to come to the next day and pick up my car and bring her home for me. I mean, these athletes got to realize that when you go out, you don't know who the girls are, but they know who you are. The guys got to realize that you're a target. You got to realize that, you know, you can't be an individual that's irresponsible with your behavior when you have the money to avoid these situations. Speaking of which, let's switch teams and talk about Brandon Jacobs on the New York Giants. The running back, Brandon Jacobs, I should say. Apparently, Sunday evening when they were playing the Indianapolis Colts, after a 2-yard loss, he was upset that he was taken out of the game by head coach Tom Coughlin. And apparently, what he says, quote unquote, threw his helmet at the bench and it popped up in the air and went 10 rows into the crowd, where a fan unknowingly got hit and didn't want to give up the helmet. But my whole thing is this. Do you really think that he threw it at the bench and it went into the crowd? Or maybe one of the crowd members was heckling him, and in a moment of just pure anger and irresponsibility, he threw the helmet into the crowd. And if he did that, I mean, what are you thinking, man? I mean, how can you expect to throw a helmet into the crowd and have there be no repercussions? I mean, what if the person gets hurt? I know if that was me, I'm looking at a $20 million lawsuit or something like that. But I mean, you can't do stuff like that. If you get mad because the coach takes you out the game because you're not running the rock the way he wants you to run the rock, you know what? You get in there, and the next time you get the ball, you put your head down, and you let anybody who's trying to take you down that it's not going to be easy. Stuff like that can't go down. Thus forth, he got a $10,000 fine, but I mean, to these athletes, $10,000, I'm sure it's money, but not as much money to the regular person. But you can't do stuff like that. And apparently after the game, he's requesting to be traded. I mean, come on, man. I mean, unfortunately, the position of running back, they're a dime a dozen. I mean, right now, the only running back I feel that anybody would want to actually trade for is possibly two running backs, Adrian Peterson and Chris Johnson. Other than that, everybody else, they're like in the bowl in which, you know, they're the same type of back, but do they fit in your system? But, you know, I guess cooler has prevailed, and after a meeting with General Manager Jerry Reese and Head Coach Tom Coughlin, he made it known and made it clear that he doesn't want to be traded. He didn't say he wanted to be traded, and that, you know, he's very sorry for what he did. So, you know, I mean, Brandon Jacobs, granted, I understand he's upset that he's been demoted to, you know, the backup running back to Ahmad Bradshaw. But, you know, let your play on the field do the talking for you, and not your actions off the field do your talking for you. Now, this is week notes in the NFL for E.TV, week number 2. Thank you for watching. Have a nice night.